Welcome to Kardec Radio. While you wait for our program to begin, check our new site. It's Kardec Flix, where Spiritism is just a click away. Also, check our publisher, Kardec Publisher, and its first 6 books. Each one is a journey to inner empowerment and love. Kardec Radio, where we nourish ourselves daily. Welcome to Kardec Radio. While you wait for our program to begin, check our new site. It's Kardec Flix, where Spiritism is just a click away. Also, check our publisher, Kardec Publisher, and its first 6 books. Each one is a journey to inner empowerment and love. Kardec Radio, where we nourish ourselves daily.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio. We are here where we're always nourishing our soul for another opportunity for us to learn together and learn with the experimenters who are here, who guide all of us. And today we're going to be talking about happiness. Who doesn't want to be happy? Do you want to be happy? Well, it will be strange if you don't raise your hands, because if we ask anyone, do you want to be happy? Certainly their answer is yes. Of course, it's natural. We're looking for the happiness of ourselves. But the question is, where are we looking for happiness? Because if we go out in the streets and ask people, what do they think is the requirement to be happy? For certain, we'll probably hear lack of problems, and people will list lack of illnesses, lack of financial problems. Some people might say, I want to have XYZ salary, position, fame. So do we see all those things are materially? But Spiritism comes and shows us, what do we truly need to be happy? And that is exactly what we'll be talking about today. So I will share my screen. We have some slides here because we are learning together, dear friends. So when we talk about happiness, let us think, let us recap the last 24 hours. We're not going to go beyond 24 hours because we know we cannot even remember what we ate yesterday, right? But let us think about, in a period of 24 hours, we probably slept, we probably ate, fed ourselves. Hopefully, we spend some time caring for the physical body, which is needed to exercise, to eat well, to take a shower. But what are we doing with our time? Are we spending most of our times sitting, most of us, like we are right now here with you in front of a computer or in front of our electronic devices? Isn't it interesting, friends, to think that only, let's say, 15 years ago, even if we go back a little further, 20 years ago, but not even that, because cell phones didn't become as easy access for us, probably about 20 years ago. Before that, I still remember we had, for example, if we were traveling, we had to go places, we had to print the directions, we had sometimes to open the physical map, and now we have everything on our fingertips. Great, technology is wonderful. We love technology, but we also know that technology has advantages. Too much technology, too much screen time affects our physical health, our emotional health. So, before we move further, let us ask ourselves this question as we are talking about happiness. Do we control our electronic device or do our electronic devices control us? Are we so attached to our phones that we depend on it 24/7? What happened if we were to take our phones away? Would we be able to quote unquote survive? Would we go desperate? So, are we controlling our electronic devices or are we letting our electronic device dictate our lives? That's a great question. If we look at some data from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention here in the United States, which is a well known institution that cares about public health, we have some astounding data. See, these are numbers of time that people from different age groups spend in front of a screen, on the TV, on our social media, in gaming. Ages 8 to 10, about average 6 hours a day. Age 11 to 14, 9 hours a day. It drops slightly between 15 to 18 years old. 7.5 is still so high. And then young adults over the age of 18 spending 11 hours in front of our screen. Yes, we know. We work, we depend on our computers, but how much are we spending on activities like browsing through social media, gaming, just being there watching YouTubes or Reels, never ending? Why is this important? Because we cannot talk about happiness if we don't talk about how we are spending our times. How are we gonna talk about the end product of being happy if we don't look at these precious resources that we have? How are we gonna be happy if we're spending half of our day in front of our screen? Well, if we're spending that amount of time doing good things, doing good actions, great. But let us be truthful, friends. How much are we actually spending on it that is productive work? So we invite all of you, let's check ourselves. Yeah, see, you can check, you don't need to tell anyone. But let us do this exercise. So if you have an iPhone, you can go to your settings. That is going to be a little settings button. You can click on screen time and then tap on app and website activity. And then there you're going to be able to see how much time you spend on different apps, on different uh, pages and websites. And the same with Android, very similar. You go to settings, tap on digital well-being and parental controls, and then you're going to see a dashboard that is going to tell you exactly the same thing. So let us take a few seconds right now. Each one of us, yes, you may be watching this video on your phone. Well, you can pause it, go to your screen time, to your settings, but come back because we want to continue talking about this. But I did this myself, friends, and it's truly shocking. Yes, it is shocking how much time are we literally wasting. We are throwing our time in the garbage. Yes, why? Because in the book, Jesus in the Home, Neo Lúcio brought to us through Chico Xavier. Beautiful accounts by Jesus. And then, right there, in a beautiful lesson, Jesus was asked, what is the precious talisman that we all have? And he answered that the most precious talisman that we have for our happiness is time. Yes. Because the day today, if you're watching this and it's already night, the day has already gone. We cannot go back in time. Although we watch movies that talk about going back to the past, we know we cannot do it. This is great. We can move forward. We have immortality to continue growing. But the opportunity that we have today is past. Tomorrow we're going to have another opportunity, but this day it is gone. So, why are we talking about this? Before we go to the Spiritist teachings, let us understand the facts of screen time, especially on children's health. You are watching this. You might have children yourself. You might have nieces and nephews. You might be an educator. You might be teaching the children in your Spiritist center. So, but this applies to children and also to adults. But why children is so important? First, their brains are still in development. Yes, do you know that we don't actually, our brains don't actually get to its full maturity until, for women a little bit earlier, maybe in their early 20s, maybe 22, but for men it's about 24 years of age. So our brain, we are still developing, and we are bombarding it with this amount of information in such a short time. This picture right here is so common in our societies. We go out and we see children sitting around a table. They are all in their phones. They are playing with one another through their phones. They're sitting right in front of each other, but instead of talking, they chat through the chat as they play a game. So it is so interesting because for the first time in our society, we are seeing a different generation. There's still a lot of research that is being done. We're going to bring a few highlights, especially from a particular study that is funded by the National Institutes of Health here in the United States of America. It is called the Adolescent Brain Cognitive Development Study, or ABCD study. Very easy. Go later to your phones in order to use our time productive. Research about it. There you see that NIH is funding this unforgettable project. It's like once in a lifetime an opportunity. More than 21 research sites across the country, and they have invited more than 11,000 children aged 9 to 10. And what they are doing, they're scanning their brains, they are doing several tests. And the beauty of it is that they're gonna follow them as they grow up so we can understand, because today the amount of data that we have about the effects of screen time in our health is very little. So what has the results already shown to us? You ready? Because this is shocking. First, those children who spend a lot of time in front of their phones, in their screens, on their tablets, they have already seen that they score lower in tests of thinking and language. Yes, they are still trying to understand why, but we can already understand a little bit. First is because We know that the amount we're spending, that our children are spending in front of the screen, are probably less time that they're doing studying, reading a book, right? Truly feeding their intellectual self. Yes. What is our children watching? What is our children playing? We need to be there. We need to be on it 24/7. We cannot just give them the device. They say, go, 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 go. Give me time. Mommy and daddy needs to work. We need to do this, that, and the other. But friends, this is so key because that's going to impact their whole life. Why? Studies have shown that by being exposed to this frequent screen time, it causes a thinning of the brain cortex, this outer layer that is related to critical thinking and reasoning. So it's not only the time and what they're watching, but it's changing the structures of their brain. And that's why we don't know the end results yet, because we're gonna know in 20, 30 years from now, and then it will be too late. Yes. Besides that, studies have already proven to us that the amount of time our children spend in front of an electronic device increases their chance for obesity, for sleeping problems. Why? Because as we spend time in front of our electronic devices, especially in the evenings, which most of the children are spending hours and hours, their parents think they are in their room sleeping, but they are actually there in the electronic devices. That light, our brain reads it as its daylight. Our brain cannot really understand that it's dark outside, but why we're being exposed to so much light coming from the screen. So then, instead of our brain telling our body, go to sleep, it's giving us hormones that will stimulate us to stay awake. So that's why it's very hard for us to go back to sleep. Screen time has already shown problems related to chronic neck and back pain for being in the same position, not moving around, right? And also problems related to depression, anxiety, and suicide. Yes, we think electronic devices are connecting to us and can be used to connect us throughout the world, which is wonderful. But studies have shown that those that use cell or electronics very, very frequently, it can increase their depression, their anxiety because they feel isolated. We are more easily to turn on social media and compare ourselves to others. And that's why suicide rates, especially among teenagers, are increasing steadily, which is so shocking because our teens are growing up thinking that they need to look like the influencer on Instagram, that they need to act and behave like the videos they see on TikTok and Snapchat. Friends, is this what we want our children to grow up with? No. We don't. Let us take away that garbage and let us feed our children with knowledge that they can take for immortality. This is so serious, especially among children and teens. Studies have shown that electronic devices are increasing the risks of our children to be addicted. Do you know what the research have shown? That screen time stimulates the release in our brain of a chemical that we produce naturally called dopamine. Dopamine is our feel good hormone. It gives us the sensation of pleasure. However, when our brains are being overstimulated and dopamine is being overstimulated and overused, then we become less sensitive. And then every time we need more stimuli, more screen time to feel the same pleasure. It is the same sensation that someone that is addicted to cocaine has, is that withdrawal. That's why we can clearly see in our children and in ourselves. You take away their electronic devices, and then, like a drug addict, we have the withdrawn, the craving for more. That's not healthy. So, because of this research, and if you want to know more, at the end, we have a slide with all the resources for you, all the studies that we have pulled this information. You can go there at the end, go to the website, read the studies. Let us inform ourselves. So, by knowing this information, we can take actions. But remember, our children is not going to change if we tell them put the cell phone away while we are there in our phones, right? So, first and foremost is our example. As we change, they change. And the great thing is now we can and we have the possibility to limit our times in different apps in our phones. And literally, we can turn it off where there's no way for us. Let's say if you give yourself an amount of time in a particular app, once that time is up, that app, it will take another 24 hours for the cycle to begin. So you're not going to be able to access that app. Those are great tools that we have in our fingertips that we can use for our children and for ourselves. So, because of this information, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization have recommendations for how much screen time we should be exposing our children and teens. Are you ready? So they say between 0 and 18 months, the recommendation is no screens, zero screens, unless that child is in talking with an adult in a video call for a few minutes, but that's an exception. No screen times, no videos, no games at all, because that brain is still so fresh, so it's developing so much. At 18 months, between 18 to 24 months, they say less than an hour a day. So very limited exposure. Then, as our children start to grow up and become toddlers between 2 to 5 years old, that's when it is 1 hour max. So before it was less than an hour. Between 2 to 5 years old, it's 1 hour max. That's incredible. If we look at the data that we've shown in the beginning of our study and we compare to this, the difference is shocking. And then when our children are 6 years or older, that's when they say that that amount can be increased to up to 1.5 hours a day. Yes, friends, there's too much for us to learn, much adjustment. Why are we sharing this? It's an alert. Spiritism let us know that in order for us to improve ourselves, one day to become pure spirit, we need to acquire intellectual knowledge and moral knowledge. This information is intellectual knowledge that makes us choose better. How are we going to be happy and how are we going to lead our children to happiness if from early age we are already limiting ourselves because we're not using our time? wisely. So, the question for all of us in this conquest for happiness, you might ask yourself, I ask myself, we all ask ourselves, what is the purpose of this reincarnation? Thanks to Allan Kardec on question 165 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked that question to the higher spirits. Thanks to him and thank you, Kardec. So then we know what is the purpose. People in our society are dying to know why I'm here. What is my purpose in this life? So the spirits answer in Kardec reports to us. There are two main purposes of our reincarnation. One of them is expiation. What is to expiate? We know through the Spiritist literature, when we commit a grave mistake, what is a grave mistake? Is when we make decisions that go against God's law. We might not be quote unquote aware at the time, but that is registered in our perispiritual bodies. Yes, it is there, friends. We cannot run for it. Our perispirit is like a hard drive of a computer. Everything is archived and stored there. So once we commit that grave mistake, there will be a time when we come in close contact with our conscience, here or in the beyond. And then we say, okay, enough is enough. I repent. I don't want to commit the same mistakes. I wanted to progress. And that's great. God's giving us another opportunity. So then God says, wonderful, go back to earth, reincarnate. But now, as you learn in this process, you have to go through expiation. There's no way to skip it. We have to go through what we cause to others so that we can truly say, I will never do this with anyone else because now I feel in our own skin. But God is so merciful and God loves us so much. And through God's justice, what we go through things is actually something very reduced to what we cause to others. We might think is unbearable, but if we only knew this is just a tiny bit, because God is merciful. God doesn't want us to suffer, but we have to go through and we have to expiate the wrongs that we did in the past. So that is the first one. There's no way to run again away from it. It's part of God's law. But the second one is our progress, our improvement. So as we, as spirits, continue to learn and grow, we're progressing. So that is the wonderful new, dear friends. We never regress. No, we don't. We only can move forward. We cannot go back, which is wonderful. But there is a caveat for us. And that's why in this quest for happiness, we need to be aware that although we never regress, we can, in a reincarnation, remain stationary or not move forward. So, although we don't go backwards, we can remain stationary. And sometimes there are spirits who remain stationary for lives, friends, at the same level. They don't regress. but they don't learn anything new. They don't move forward. And why? Why is this important for us? Kardec asked that question in the Spirit's book, and he says, if we're destined to progress, if we all will get there, so then what is the rush? And then the spirits responded to him, well, the quicker you get there, the happier you'll be. So if we want to be happy, friends, which we at the very beginning, we all settled that we all want to get happy, be happy, right? Then we need to work to get there the quickest that we can. So that's why we, through studies with Spiritist scholars in Brazil who study the study of their spiritual being, which you can also watch here on Kardec Radio. We have been studied that we all reincarnated to make profound transformations. Yes, God didn't say, go back, suffer, and then come back to the spiritual realm. No, God says, go back. Yes, you're going to have to go through that experience. You're going to have to expiate, but you're going to have time to make those profound transformations. It is not a transformation outward, it's inward. It's when we go in and we say, I don't get along with that person. Why is it? Why is in that relationship, in being in touch with that person that is giving me frictions? Let us study it. Let us not just repel in people from our lives, and let us go deeper and say, well, maybe it's because that person pushed those buttons in me. But why do they push those buttons? Because I have those buttons. If those buttons didn't exist inside of myself, then their behavior would not push those buttons in me. So then we go deeper within instead of blaming others, instead of victimizing ourselves, we say, no. Spiritist comes and say there are no victims. We're only victims, quote unquote, of ourselves because nothing happens to us simply by chance. The poor me attitude is crossed out. We don't read in any spirit's book the accounts by Emmanuel, by Andrea Lewis, all through the books of Humberto de Campos and Chico Xavier. There's no poor me attitude. The higher spirits are always by our side helping us, but they never gonna look at us and say, oh, poor thing, you're going through that. No, they say, get up. If you're going through this, it's because you have the muscles to overcome it. Let us move forward. We never regress. So let us be hopeful. Let us be joyful. Let us love. Let us help everyone. And let us truly work with ourselves. So, friends, in this quest for happiness, it is important that we revise some concepts. We know we are created by God, but God is so wonderful. God is so good that He created all of us, and He says, you are co-creator with me. God is not just sitting there saying, yeah, I am here sitting on my throne and I take care of everything. He says, no, I created you. I love you. Co-created with me. And that's why God gave us so many resources. God gave us the free will to choose. So through this co-creation, we know that we have our part. We cannot just sit down, cross our arms and say, oh yeah, God is going to take care of everything. Uh-uh. Spiritism comes to show us that we are co-creators. So if we want things to change in our lives, we need to make those changes ourselves. And that's why, friends, as we are co-creators with God, there's only two routes for us. Either we are being useful or we are being useless. We are in inertia, in idleness, in laziness. Do we see in as co-creators, there's no neutral zone. There's no way for us to say, not today. I'm too tired today, God. You take care of it. I'm just gonna sit here and wait. No. If we're not being useful, we are being lazy. We are in this inertia. And that's what we see in our society nowadays. That's what we see in our children and teens. You ask them and they say, I'm bored, I'm bored. And how come we can be bored if there's a beautiful planet, so many opportunities for us, and we are wanting to be there in our own laziness? So if we go to the Spirit's book, third part, yes, there Kardec explains to us that as we are useful, useful is any useful occupation that we're doing. We are here, we're learning together. That is an useful occupation. We are nourishing our brains with good things. Yes, so going to school, doing our homework, going to work, truly dedicating ourselves to our family, cooking a good meal, cleaning the house, yes, reading a spiritus book or any elevated book, we're being useful. So as we are being useful, we are then, says Kardec to all of us, we are fulfilling God's law, which is the law of work. Being useful is a law. So it is part of the divine laws. So as we fulfill God's laws, we are progressing, we are moving forward, we're not being stationary, and then we are complying with God's law. But when we are useless, when we are in this inertia, we just want to sit and relax, and unfortunately, this is so common nowadays. We spend so much time in our youth, young adulthood, in school and learning, and then people get a job and they say, I've done enough. I done. I don't want to learn anymore. And then what people start doing, they start counting their days to retirement. How many people we know and that we talk about that they're there each day checking a box saying, one last day until I retire, one last day until I retire. Retire to do what, friends? Yes, we know our bodies just get to a certain age. We have physical limitations. It is understandable that we make modification in our lives, but not the retirement that people think that they will go, retire, move to the beach, and enjoy life. And then so many stories that we know that the day people retire, they get to know that they are sick, and then this plan that they had, it completely turns upside down. And then in a few years or months, sometimes they discarnate. Why? Because God is saying, you want to be lazy? You want to be in inertia? You want to be idle? Well, that's when we're feeding our vices. That's when our addictions come in. Not only addictions of drug use, but addictions to our phones, addictions to eating, Addictions to gossiping. If we were being useful, if we were working, we're not going to have time to talk about people's lives. Addictions to video games, which is so common nowadays for young adults and actual adults. Vices of all sorts, addictions to sex, to pornography, because we are there. Then let us think about it, friends, together. When we are there in this laziness, what type of spirits do we think we are attracting? Because elevated spirits, they're not going to be there. No, but there are millions, a legion of spirits who wants to feed from the things that we watch, what we do, what we eat, what we drink. So we are truly being vampirized by those that want us to stay in our inertia so that they can feed through their vices. So if we stay in this inertia, in the vices of our lives, then we are stagnant. And as we are stagnant, we are going against God's law. So, yes, we're being an outlaw. In God's quote unquote eyes, we're being criminals because we're not fulfilling His law. If we want to be happy, friends, then let us scratch that. If we think we're going to be happy when we retire and we sit by the beach and relax, let us then read all the books by Andrea Lewis, all the books by Emmanuel, and then we'll see that in any of the Spirit's book, there is not one of them that we know that says that happiness equals to what our society preaches to us. You're going to be happy when you have a degree. You're going to be happy when you have a family. You're going to be happy when you have X amount of dollars in your bank account. You're going to be happy when you have that car, that purse, that clothes. Friends, that is not happiness. We're just feeding our own pleasures. We're talking here about the happiness of the spirit. So then we know, friends, it's a lot. It's a lot of information, but we need to open our eyes once and for all so that we make wiser decisions in our lives. So then, as we are in this inner journey of deep transformation, how do we transform ourselves? There's only one way, friends, through effort and repetition. There's no need for guilty. Let us not feel guilty, okay? Let us get rid of that guilt feeling for ourselves. But let us say, okay, now I know, now I can make wiser decisions. And we're not going to be able to do it through without effort and repetition. Today we might try, we might not succeed, but tomorrow is another day. We're gonna try it again, and we're gonna try it again and again and again until to the point, friends, that this will be second nature. It's like going to the gym. At the beginning, it is so hard. Our muscles, they get so sore. But then as we start in that effort and repetition, day in and day out, then our bodies respond so beautifully. We're just now, right, watching the Olympics, the Paralympics, and we can see, and it's incredible to see once we condition ourselves. Do we think, friends, none of those athletes got to where they are without effort and repetition? If we have ever practiced any sports, any musical instrument, we know that we need effort and repetition. And why would it be different? Through our spiritual progress. It wouldn't. So that's great. So then we don't feel guilt anymore. We say, okay, God, I will try again tomorrow, and again the next day, and again the next day. And then we start building muscles. But how can we do it, friends? In the Spirit's book, Kardec once again bring us the recipe for happiness. The key for happiness. What is it? The Spirit says through Kardec, selfishness is the source of our vices. If we go back to the diagram with the inertia and the vices, the root causes of it all is our selfishness, where we only think about ourselves, what is good for us, our pleasures. But once we change the paradigm and we focus on the needs of others, we're being charitable. And that is the source of all our virtues. So, the key to happiness is, are you ready? Yes, this is our highlight, dear friends. The key to happiness is our internal effort and repetition every day to destroy that selfishness inside of us. Selfishness is the source of all our vices. So let us push ourselves to destroy that selfishness by practicing charity. But let us recap, what is charity? Because charity is not going to the street and feeding the homeless. That is a beautiful act of charity, is an act. But the true charity is within. We can go there. But if we look at those people and then deep inside we think, that person doesn't look really like they're homeless. I don't know what they're doing here. Or we judge them. We say, they are here on the streets, but they can go across the street and work at a at a store. Why are they here? Do they don't want to work? Are they lazy? And then we're judging. So then we're not being charitable because inside of us, we are being judgmental. We're not being loving and kind. Charity is and starts first and foremost inside of our homes with those closest to us because we reincarnate for those deep transformation, and that's not possible through our relationships. So spiritism comes. Thanks to spiritism, we know it's not by chance that we are in this family. It's not by chance that we are with this particular group of friends, of co-workers. It's not by chance that we were born in a particular country or we were living in a particular area. So then we look at life through different lens and we start that charity inside of our own homes, in our closest circle. Is when instead of being that person in our family that feeds the fire, that say that word, we are peacemakers. When people come to us, talk about their relative, what they did, we put a kind word. We stop the gossip mill. Is when we look at our children and our partners and our parents with gratitude. They're not perfect, but we're together for a reason. So we truly learn to love, not to expect to be loved, but to truly love the other person and go an extra mile. That is the key to happiness, friends. That is what Jesus came to show each and every one of us, that our happiness is nothing external, is through our moral perfection. So, as we wrap up, we remember Jesus. He is our guide and model. He is Our example, if we want a coach in our lives, Jesus is our coach every day, saying, start again, try again, you can do it. I trust you. And he came to show us he didn't have, think about it, he didn't have a home. He, at that time, barely had anything, right? He didn't have the most up to date tennis shoes because at that time there were no tennis shoes, very simple sandals, simple clothing. He lived most of his time at Simon Peter's home. Yes, he didn't have a home. We never heard about, oh, that is Jesus' home. He didn't have a family, quote unquote. He loved his mother, but he shows to us that we are his family. He's here for all of us. He didn't say, oh, right now I need to pay attention to my mom. I need to give my mom attention. No, he gave attention to everyone. And he showed to us that we don't need anything externally to be happy. But if we are in peace with ourselves, if we are fulfilling God's will by getting rid of our selfishness and being charitable, then we will truly be happy. So, friends, we know it's a lot for us to reflect. Here are all the resources. You can go back later if you want. You can read more. These are just some. We can study much more together. But let us close with this image of Jesus, truly thanking Him, Master Jesus. Thank you for being our guide and model. Thank you for coming to earth to show us how we can be truly happy. Please, Master Jesus, guide us through every step in our lives so that we can once and for all make the decision to do different in this life, to wake up and to truly do what we came here to do, which is to love others as we love ourselves, as you said, to get rid of our selfishness and be loving and kind and charitable to everyone because we are all brothers and sisters. Thank you, Jesus, for everything you give to us. And thank you, friends, for being here in these moments of true nourishment for our souls. Let us stay together because here at Kardec Radio, there are programs 24/7 and we're always nourishing our souls. We'll see you soon, dear friends. Bye bye.